Hello, kidney warriors! James here from Dadvice TV, your online kidney health coach, and this is episode number 336 of Dadvice TV, and we are live tonight. And tonight we have an amazing story from someone who, her story reminds me a lot of my own. She's diagnosed with kidney disease. She's told, dialysis, that's your future. But she took things in her own hands. She became empowered with information, and she changed that trajectory. We're going to talk to her and learn all about her story, what it was like, what she learned along the way, and what she did to reverse the trend headed towards dialysis. And now she's doing great. All right, please welcome the great big giant Dadvice TV welcome, Deb. Hey there, Deb. How you doing?
Hi, James. I'm doing well.
Now, it looks pretty nice and sunny out behind you. Where are you at approximately?
I'm in North Florida, and it is sunny. It's been raining, but it cleared, and it's beautiful out today.
Oh, North Florida. Now, I used to live just outside of Fort Walton Beach. And I loved it there. Went to high school at Niceville High School. Go Eagles. Want to go back there and visit with my kids soon. But let's go back and let's talk about the beginning of your story, your journey. When did you first find out that something might be wrong with your kidneys? And how did that impact you, especially emotionally?
Oh, I can't tell you exactly when because it kind of creeped up on me. And I had no symptoms typical with many cases of chronic kidney disease. So I got the news from regular blood work. I don't know. So I'm 70 this month. I was in my 50s when my doctor said, "Oh, your numbers are off." Nothing. And that's all the attention that was given to it at that point in time. I just didn't think it was really a concern. But as time went on, numbers dropped. The GFR was lower. That's the number I'm talking about. I'm sure your listeners are familiar with that number.
Yep.
And so I started asking some questions. And as you alluded to, more or less what I was told is it's going to end in dialysis. That's about how much advice I got. I was told to watch salt, um, watch protein intake. Early on, they didn't tell me not to take NSAIDs, which I think was a factor
Ooh.
that moved it along. I took a prescription NSAID for arthritic pain for a period of years, and now, of course, now that I know better, I take none. It's really important. And so when I switched doctors somewhere in there for the sake of my husband, actually, I went with a gerontologist. I wanted the same doctor as my husband, and we needed a specialist in gerontology but for his health needs. And she said something similar to you. This probably will end in dialysis.
Mm-hmm.
Watch your salt, watch your protein, do all the healthy things you know to do. But the numbers were just slowly dropping off. And so I asked if there was anything to do with a referral to a nephrologist. I did that, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 years ago. I said yes. I was nervous till then. I thought, why am I not seeing a specialist? And he, I know, was the same. He didn't have much advice for me about how to take care of myself. And that's about when I started doing research and looked a little deeper into what I could be doing to change the trajectory that you referred to of CKD. And part of that, I discovered Renadyl. I'd say 3 years ago, I started Renadyl. And it, along with a lot of other things I do, I told you before we started here, just came out of a yoga class. I exercise regularly. I watch my diet, and I take Renadyl faithfully. I really believe in it.
Yep. Now, before we get into all the details about that, when you were first told you have kidney disease, that your kidneys aren't doing that great, had you ever heard about kidney disease? Was it something that ever even crossed your mind? Or was this
No,
something completely new?
it was new. It was completely new, and it didn't even hold any meaning for me. Even being told that, it didn't. There was not enough attention or importance, in my opinion, put on it. And I don't know what that's about. I guess doctors kind of don't know what to do with that
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis. I don't know. I don't know.
Now, since they didn't put any, you know, or they didn't make it seem like, hey, this is serious. And that was, you and I share a very similar path, as well as many of our listeners out there, where the doctors just say, yeah, your kidney numbers are a little bit lower. So watch the diet, drink some more water, go on with life. But since they didn't put any importance on or any seriousness in the beginning, was there anything you really did in the beginning? Did you start researching kidney disease, kidney issues, or just assume, okay, doctor's not worried, I'm not going to be worried?
That's the route I took. It just wasn't on my radar at all. I had other medical issues that may have been part of the reason, but I don't think so. It was just not characterized as critical.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. And it's shocking that so many people have that exact same experience. Now,
yeah.
once you changed to the new doctor, um, did they take it more serious? Did they do things differently? Give you different advice or start helping educate you about kidney disease?
Gosh, no, I hate to say that. I like this doctor very much, but she didn't really. So I meet with her every 6 months and do all of the lab work that can be done. And she would always go over everything and that were out of range. And she would bring it to my attention, but there was no action plan. There was just nothing. And as I saw the numbers drifting downward, that's when I said, I think maybe I brought up. I don't know who brought it up, but that's when a referral to a nephrologist came up, and I, I think that's the way she addresses it. Doctors are so specialized now. When I think that referring me out to a nephrologist was her way of addressing it, which is
Yep.
fine. I like my nephrologist.
Well, it's good that you got to the point where you were referred to a nephrologist so that you could start learning more about how serious kidney disease can become. And in those early stages, there's things you can do to help slow the progression, maybe even put the brakes on it completely. Now, you
Yes.
mentioned that your first doctor, I think both your doctors told you you'd eventually be on dialysis.
Mhm.
How did that make you feel?
That was like a kick in the gut. It really just blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I felt, well, I was taking good care of myself in so many other ways. As I said, I have other medical problems, and I felt like I had gotten a handle on those. And then to find out I was facing that prospect down the line, it was just very discouraging. But I just didn't want to accept it. No one would, I suppose, but so I did my own research.
Yep. Now, did you have any other underlying conditions that you mentioned taking the NSAIDs, but did you have high blood pressure, diabetes, any of those things that tend to be the cause of kidney disease?
I don't. No, I don't at all. I don't have any of those other causes. It's an unknown. No one has an idea about where it started. I So early in my life, well, throughout my life, but in my young life, I had many kidney infections, and it then I don't know, when I went to the nephrologist, he did some sort of ultrasound to look at my kidneys. And one of my kidneys seems to be very small, underdeveloped. Maybe it's always that way. So what part that played, I don't know. So I'm already working though with less kidney function, it seems, from birth, perhaps,
Mhm.
perhaps some disease process in my childhood. I don't know, but that's what I've got. And it was working fine for a long time, but as age went on, not so much.
Now, you mentioned that there really wasn't a lot of guidance from your doctors, and that's sadly the norm that we see quite often in the kidney community. Where did you go to start learning what to do to make better decisions for yourself to kind of take control? Can you walk us through, where you went, how you decided, you know what, I'm going to do this? You pretty much said, "Hey, dialysis, no. I want to
Right.
find an alternative." How did that? Can you tell us about that? How that all happened and came about?
Well, I did what everybody does. I Googled it. I started reading everything I could online, and that was how I did it. There was, oh gosh, I should have checked this before I sat down to talk with you. There's a website with uh, renal dietitians
Mm-hmm.
online that had a lot of great information there, and I think I've seen it referenced in Renadyl's materials. But so that was a jumping off point for professional articles that I read. I looked for professional research. I didn't want to just listen to some fly by night operation about how to take care of my kidneys. I wanted to look for the real substantial data on it. And I just went from there, and it all makes good sense. The formula for good health really is the same for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Now,
We've got all.
what were some of those lifestyle changes that you made once you started learning about what you could do and what is good, what's not good for your kidneys? And you just mentioned it's Tuesday night and you do yoga, which
I
is
do.
exercise is great. But what else did you do?
Well, exercise is a big part of my health strategy. I do yoga several times a week. I do Pilates once a week. I walk about 3 times a week. I've got a sweet canine companion that walks with me. He's over here beside me right now, listening to me talk to you. Um, and and I attended to nutrition, but honestly, I think I was eating pretty well before that. I grew up with a mother that didn't add salt to anything, so I don't have a taste for that. That wasn't a problem. And the NSAIDs I eliminated. I think that was maybe the biggest change. Stress management, and then for me, good sleep has been problematic, and I've really attended to that. So, and like I said, it's the same thing everybody hears about good health. It really doesn't matter the diagnosis. Good food, good rest, stress management, exercise, drink plenty of water, and you got it made.
Awesome. Now, when you
Yeah,
were doing research, you came across information about probiotics, especially, specifically Renadyl. Um,
right.
what clicked when you started reading about probiotics that got you to say, "Hey, maybe I need to try this Renadyl. Maybe this is something that can help put the odds in my favor of not ending up on dialysis"? How did that all happen?
It was on that website with the renal dietitians. I found an article about Renadyl, and it just made sense to me that I mean, I looked at what they said about the research, but that so I imagine it working kind of side by side with your kidneys, cleaning out um, toxins, whatever the kidneys can't deal with. It helps clean them out. That made sense to me. It helps deliver them I think, to the intestines, and then it's eliminated. I don't care. But it made sense to me, and I tried it, and I told my nephrologist about it. I asked him specifically. I said I just started taking probiotics. I didn't use the brand name. I said, "What do
Mm-hmm.
you think about that as a beneficial for chronic kidney disease?" And he says, "Oh well, you know." He says, well, not unless it's Renadyl. That's he. I didn't mention, and I said, that's
You
it.
found one that heard about it?
Yes,
Awesome.
yes. And so that sealed it for me early on. It's like, okay, if this guy whom I like and respect thinks it's pretty good, I'm going to go with it. Plus what I read, and that's what I did. That's how it happened.
So your story and mine have so many parallels. I also learned about it from my dietitian, and I asked my doctor, and he actually was familiar with it and said, oh yeah, I've been reading. There's a lot of research coming out about the gut and inflammation and all this other stuff. Try it. Let's see what it does for you. Even if it only
Right.
does a little, all these little things add up. It's worth it. Just do it, do it, do it. And, similar to you, I was told dialysis was guaranteed in my future. I was given a 45-day.
Oh,
It would be
right.
there at the most. And we're coming up, I think, on 8 years this November. you know?
Wonderful.
Now, so you started making these lifestyle changes. You started taking Renadyl, and I like to think of Renadyl, for those that aren't familiar with it, I think it is like the old video game Pac-Man, and I think everyone can relate to the game Pac-Man. In your gut, you've got all this good bacteria in there, and there are things that get absorbed in your blood that your kidneys are then tasked with filtering. It puts more workload on your kidneys. Well, the bacteria, they're very unique bacteria in Renadyl. It's in a special capsule, so it survives, gets to your gut, starts growing. They're like little Pac-Mans, and they eat these bad things. They don't eat all of them, but they eat enough, and they get passed through your intestines. When you take a poo, they go out, you
Mm.
flush them away, and what Renadyl consumed, the little bacteria, did not get absorbed in your blood, did not have to go through your kidneys. Your kidneys were then kind of free to have to do less. There's less for them to keep up with when they're not able to function at full capacity. So it really helps them. It's almost like a little pre-dialysis in there. That's how I like to think about it. And I explained it to my kids because I take a lot of different medications for blood pressure and stuff. And my Renadyl is in the fridge. And that's one of the ones they know, oh, Dad takes that every day. And, they love to help me get my pills and stuff like that in the morning when they can. But that's kind of like how I like to think about it. So once
I heard you
you,
describe that once, and I like that analogy to
yeah,
Pac-Man working side by side with your kidneys.
yeah, exactly. Now, once you learned about, hey, all these lifestyle changes I should do, exercising, you're eating better, or you're eating a little differently, because it sounds like you had a good diet to start with, and you started taking Renadyl. What did your labs start doing? What was it like when you went in to get your labs to look at your numbers? Right now, in your story, we've been looking at them trending downward, which is what happens with most of us. And our doctor is just pretty much like, yep, it's down some more. When it gets to this one point, you got to go on dialysis. Tell us about
Well,
what happened after you started making these changes.
mine have been trending upward, and there were periods in those 3 years that I'm talking about where it would kind of stabilize, but I never took a dip after this concerted attention that I've been giving to my kidney health. And I'm going to share with you that my last labs, blows my mind. So I'm 70. I'm in the age group where 60 GFR is the lowest normal number. I hit 60 a month ago. I hit,
Yay!
I know. I know.
Now, do you have any protein in your urine? And I know that sounds like a bizarre question for a
No,
stranger to ask. Oh,
no, no.
then you're doing fantastic.
I am. I am.
You would be considered normal now for your age and that kidney function and no protein, which, oh my God, I can only imagine what that does for you emotionally. Can you talk about that? What is it like now being at that point when you were thinking, oh my goodness, I might have to be on dialysis?
Well, I don't worry about it. I don't really. So now, so again, I'm not giving so much attention to it. It's kind of, I've got this plan, it's working, it's peace of mind. And until something in my lab work comes up that says otherwise, I'm not going to change anything. I feel good and it's working. That's it. I feel great peace about that.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to dive a little bit more into that. I love that you say you're at peace more because you don't think about it as much.
Yeah.
Thinking back to when you were at the toughest times being diagnosed and where you are now, what was your outlook on the future? Things like travel, time with family. These are things that, for me, I think about often in the back of my mind.
Right.
Of the future. What was it like for you, and what, before and after with where your kidneys are?
Well, so my concern was probably during the pandemic for reasons other than holed up at home and didn't have anything else to think about, you know. And I was just very focused on that issue. It preoccupied me during like 4 or 5 years ago. But I don't know. It never really consumed me, James. I did the best I could and let it go after that. I don't, I don't know that I answered your question.
No, I think you did. So when I was first diagnosed, this is going to sound not important, especially when I think back on it now. And of course, I was concerned about my future with my kids. I had two very, very young kids. But I remember one of the things outside of family that I remember, oh my goodness, I'm going to miss so much, was I thought, I'm never going to be able to eat pizza again. And I know that's bizarre, but I was like, I will never be able to get that giant, I love the thick pizza that you have to use a fork with, just piled on with all the toppings. And I was like, that's been ripped from me overnight. One day I'm okay. The next day, boom, can't eat that. It's really, really bad for me. And it was bad for me before, but I didn't look at it as bad. I missed it, and I thought about traveling. You and I briefly talked before we came on air that my plan for retiring is moving to Europe to travel, see all the history, to walk all these different places, just to explore. All that was crushed. I felt like it was taken away from me when I was first diagnosed. But as I started getting better, I realized, no, I can still have pizza. I don't have it that often, and it's so loaded with salt. I just skip it now. Because of that, I don't miss it. But I look forward to the traveling and things like that. And, being originally diagnosed, I felt like so much was taken away from me. And then by being able to become stable and improve kidney function like you have, and using things like Renadyl, I felt like I got my life back. I got a second chance.
Right. I can connect you around that. I've wanted to travel in retirement, and I didn't know that I was going to be able to. Dialysis would throw that out the window. But I got to go last fall to Iceland with friends, and
Ooh.
I'm very grateful that I'm still able to go and do. And yeah, so it's not cramping my style at all.
Now you mentioned you really, really believe in Renadyl. You've been taking it for a while. You're still taking it today, correct?
I am daily, yes.
Yep. And we had a few people ask, James, how can I buy it? They asked in the chat shortly after you mentioned it from the very beginning. So I just want to let everyone know real quick. you can go to Renadyl.com. The website's right here on the screen. There is a discount code, Dadvice 2410. I take Renadyl. I take it every day. I was taking the normal 2 tablets a day. I then switched to 1 to kind of make it. I felt I was in like a maintenance mode after taking it so long. I'm back up to 2, sometimes 3 pills a day. I'll explain everyone why in a different video. I took another medication my doctor put me on that they quickly took me off because it did not do good for my kidneys. So right now I'm pretty much double upping on my Renadyl, plus doing all the things I'm supposed to do to try to get my kidney numbers back up to where they were. I hit an all-time high. Like you hit your 60. I hit 35, and I was just thrilled. And this new pill ruined my 35, and I'm going to get back to it.
Oh my.
But I wanted to let people know where Renadyl is, where they can get it. Candy's asking, where's the link? Candy, you'll have to type it in, Renadyl.com. There is a link in the description that'll take you straight through to it. Also on Dadvice TV, there's a link to it. Now, when you started taking it, did you have to go through any adjustments? Some people, and I was one of them, get a little gaseous in the beginning as your gut health is getting, growing the good bacteria. Did you have any issues when you started taking it?
No, nothing that I recall. If I did, it was very minor, very minor. And I will add, it's very good for regularity.
Yeah.
And additional benefits. So.
Yes, and that's something that we could use from time to time, especially some of the medications we may need to take fight against that regularity. So we need all we can to help us keep things moving, so to speak.
Right. And there's I just feel very encouraged about taking this a probiotic because of all the research that's coming out about the multitude of benefits of having a healthy microbiome. It makes a lot of good sense.
Yep. And someone just asked, when can you start taking Renadyl? For anyone out there, you can start taking it. If you're stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, you can start taking it. It's also been shown to be safe if you've had a transplant. Some people take it while they're on dialysis. It is a probiotic. It's not a medication. So it's just good bacteria. And things like eating sauerkraut, eating yogurt also can give you some good bacteria. But the stuff that's in Renadyl is specific bacteria that helps eat the things that we need not to have a lot of in our blood, that our kidneys would then be tasked with removing. Now, Deb, so if somebody else out here is listening and they've just been diagnosed and they feel hopeless, which is very common in the beginning. When you're diagnosed, there's so much misinformation, confusing information out on the internet. It's hard to know to go find that the professional stuff like you looked for. What would you say to someone who's newly diagnosed? They've got that same concern, the fear. What would you say to help put them on the right path right now?
Well, gosh, I think I've already said it. Attending to all those different aspects of good health and not just focusing on kidney health now, and attending to exercise, diet, stress management, sleep, all of those things. And so taking good care of yourself, it can be really self-reinforcing. So I always have thought about it with my different medical challenges of trying to optimize my potential health. I don't, it may not be the same as yours, James, or anyone else's out there, but I just want to get the most out of this one life I've been given. And so taking good care of that, kind of a loving self gesture. That's kind of my state of mind about taking care of my health. It's not selfish. It's self-love, which and it reinforces itself, in my opinion. That sounds corny probably, but that's how I feel about it. It's how I feel about it.
Very similar here. I look at it as doing all the right things. Like if I'm out and about, just last night I took my kids somewhere and there was all these amazing looking treats, just delicious cakes and pies and stuff. And I was like, oh my goodness. There was a time I would have just loved to eat so many of these things. But I know, hey, you know what? I got to show discipline. It's for me. I'm doing this for me. It's for my future. Someone mentioned they want to be able to see their grandkids. It's so that I can see my grandkids. That's what I want. So I'm doing all this to put the odds in my favor. And some
Yes.
people may say, hey, they don't want to, healthier food costs more. Yes, it does cost more, but you're spending that money on your future. You're investing it in those positive tomorrows, those positive next years, those positive next decade ahead of you. And it's so worth it. So I definitely understand exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, last question I have here, and this may be a tough one. Looking back, what do you think is the single most important thing you did that helped change the course of your kidney health?
Well, I really think it's Renadyl. I sound like a walking commercial, but I, I think it's been a critical piece because, like I said, I was doing a lot of these other things anyway for my general health, uh, and then I added this, and it made the difference.
That is awesome. Awesome to hear. Well, let me see. I'm going to look through. Let's see. Let me see if there's any questions here that we may want to address. There's a few people asking about my kidney function. I always love to get updates on that. And I will be sharing an update with everyone and the medication that I was on and what happened with my labs. And I have a hilarious story of the last time I got labs. The first time something went wrong with the needle. Thank goodness the girl had a face shield on. Yeah. And I still got a big old mark on my arm, and it was over a week ago. But to me, it was quite funny. Let's see. I'm looking through all this. Hey, someone asked when you first started, when you were first, like, what was the lowest your kidney function number, your EGFR, got to?
It was 44. That was
Oh,
that was the low point. Yeah.
yep. Well, let's see. What else is there in here? Someone says, "Thanks, Deb. You're an inspiration." And Michelle believes in your outlook, positivity, and of course, Renadyl. That is great. So I'm going to bring up that URL one last time for anyone out there who would like to learn more about Renadyl or order it for yourself. Renadyl.com, and there is a discount code for those that are here watching on Dadvice TV. It's Dadvice2410. It gets you a discount. I cannot remember offhand what the discount is, but it gets you a discount. And the people at Renadyl have been really great at, recently I've been reaching out to them asking, hey, can you help get more doctors that I can get on here that can talk about gut health? Because I've been watching the research also about how important gut health is, and not only just helping with CKD patients, but the inflammation, which is another challenge a lot of us have. So much of that can be traced back to some challenges with the balance in our gut. Deb, you've been a joy and a pleasure to chat with on this night. I am a little jealous of that sun in Florida behind you. I am up here in Michigan. You don't get too much more northern and less sunny than Michigan. but I'm wishing you all the best the rest of the year. And thank you so much for coming here, sharing your amazing story with us. And I look forward to, maybe even catching up later and still hearing that your kidney function is over 60.
85.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone.